Hello, Sally Prozar. So wonderful to have you here today. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. And to start off with, would you be able to give us your elevator pitch?
Oh, Sarah, putting me on the spot with this one. I would love to. I am Sally. I'm a voice and public speaking coach. A lot of people that you come across hear public speaking and they want to sink down in their chairs. And I'm like the opposite. I'm like, give me the microphone. People have to keep it away from me because I like it so much. And what I do is I help people be able to speak with confidence and with clarity and in a way that's engaging for people and to be able to connect with their voice so they feel confident to be able to speak in any scenario they find themselves in.
Well, awesome. And I was so excited to get you on. I think this is so perfect for people in that launch or startup stage of a new business because we are the face behind our business. We've got to stand out there and we're the thing that makes our business different to the person down the road. You might sell something slightly different, but really it's you. So if you've got the power to stand out there and tell people about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what makes you special and all that sort of stuff and get out there, it really, really can catapult the success that you have from your business. So it's a pretty powerful thing. Before we get into all the nuts and the bolts of the episode, I'd just like to get a bit of a background on your business story because you're a business owner as well. And I know that there's a lot of key takeaways that people could take from your journey so far. So how has that looked? What have you done in your 4 years, I believe it is?
Yeah, 4 years just recently. Wow, where has all that time gone? So my career background was a speech and drama teacher. Then I was a TV and radio news reporter. And then I was a spokesperson for a water and sewage company. So I was the glamour girl for sewage, telling people what they should and shouldn't flush. Throughout that, voice has been a big part of it, of course. And then I started off by helping journalists with their news voice. I've kind of got a little bit of a news voice myself, being a former reporter, and I still work with journalists now. Over the 4 years, I've definitely moved more online, and that was a lucky thing that I did before COVID, actually, and have turned more into a whole of life approach voice coach because it's all good and well to say, okay, this is how you breathe and this is how you stand and this is what you say. Yet, if deep down you're not overcoming those blockages, those fears to being able to express your voice, then there's not much change you can make. So that's why I take the whole of person approach and I have online courses, one-on-ones, I do keynote speaking, corporate workshops. And if anyone does human design, I'm a manifesting generator, which is why I have like thousands and thousands of products.
That is awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I love what you just said there, that you train people to have a journalist voice because I've always listened to the news. I'm like, I wonder if they just talk like that and that's how they get the job or if they get taught to talk like that. So you're telling us they get taught to talk with that journalist talk. And what is it that what makes their voice different to ours? Like, what are we listening to that you go, oh yeah, it sounds like a journalist? Like,
Yeah. And there really isn't any voice coaching. You just got to turn up and do it. And most people I work with are students or journalists who have news directors who say, no, you can't progress because you haven't got a good voice. But there's
yeah.
nothing we can really do about it.
And you
So
can
it's not
change
really
your voice. Like, so if there's, I know, especially when I started doing this, when I listened to my voice, I'm like, oh my God, this is cringe-worthy, which I think everybody does when they hear it recorded. So you actually work with people. And if I say, like, I guess I've got a pretty high pitched voice, especially when I'm excited, you would then work with me to level that out. Or how does that work on that side of things?
Yeah, so our voice is like a musical instrument. And in the same way as you learn how to play a guitar or piano, most people are just out there hitting the default key of their voice without discovering how to access the full range. Kind of like your wardrobe, you've got your sporty version and you've got something you'd wear to a party and something you wear to a black tie event, and you are 100% you in all of those outfits. Voice is the same. And if you can access the full range of your pitch, play with your pace, your volume, inflection, all of those things, then you've got so much more range in your vocal wardrobe. So for a journalist, if you look at their tone, it's quite low. So they speak in their chest register quite a lot. If it was here too much, it would be a little bit annoying and hard to listen to. So it's quite down here near the chest. And the inflection is actually quite flat. News reporters are quite monotone. It's not like in the news today. In the news today, it's quite flat with
Yeah.
that. And the articulation is quite crisp. in order to be clear with the story that's being shared. In Australia, especially, we never put the T's on the end of our words, for example. We'd say, oh, you all right, rather than
Oh,
you are right. We replace all of our T's with D's. I say, are you feeling better rather than better? If I'm saying the word rider, am I like riding in a book or am I riding a horse? You know? So you'll hear news reporters will do things like that, like put their T's in, and it will give it that extra level of clarity. So we work on all that.
see, that's amazing, and that's the stuff. I guess this is that next level we're talking about now. Really, there's all these different levels we can go with public speaking and different things. But how incredible to think that if you're one of those people out there right now going, I would not do public speaking because I don't like the sound of my voice. Well, you can change that. So if that's the reason that's stopping you, it doesn't need to be. So that's amazing, and probably something like I've done a little bit of training in this space, nowhere near like anywhere the caliber of journalists or anything like that, just more for the business side. And I just think how incredible that could open that up for people to think of this as something that they want to do. So with your work that you do, so a bit of it's about training your voice and using your voice to its full potential and all that wonderful stuff that we talked about there. Then there's the other couple of elements. So I guess that would be your story. I know you talk about that, and it's also your presenting. Is there anything else that I've missed apart from those two that you think are key?
Yeah, it's mainly mindset. So for business
Mindset.
or aspiring business owners who are thinking of or are listening, don't worry about your voice. Like, honestly, don't make your voice a reason not to do something. I've had business owners say, I want to get some voice coaching so I can start a podcast. I say, go start the podcast and come back to me.
Yeah.
You know, like not thinking, oh, I don't like the sound of my own voice. You know, if you don't believe your voice has influence, how can it have influence?
Yeah.
You know, so it's about not having that as an excuse and just doing it.
And on that fact as well is I myself was nervous to do the podcast because I'm like, oh God, like, am I going to just trip over my words? Like, what am I going to talk about? But you start doing it and actually get out there and practice it. I guess it's like anything. The more that you practice this sort of stuff, the better you get at it. So if somebody's thinking about doing it, get out there, start presenting or whatever it is you're wanting to do. And then you can work with them to sort of refine that and make it a little bit sharper and get the T's in there instead of the D's or whatever else we might be
So
doing.
much of it, absolutely. So much of it is those blocks of, oh, what will people think? I'm
Mm,
worried what they'll say. Oh, I'm going to sound stupid. Oh, I don't know enough. So it's really about taking away these mental blockages that we
yeah,
have to showing up. And
yeah.
it really does make a difference when you use your voice. When I was on TikTok, I started out doing lip syncing and doing the trends and all of that. And it wasn't until I did a straight to camera video with my face and with my voice that things started going viral.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought this up because I was looking at your stuff earlier and saw that you've got something ridiculous on TikTok. Is it 500,000 or 250,000 people or something on there now following you? Is that
Uh,
right?
I think it's about 350 at the
Like,
moment.
that's insane. And how long have, like, this is completely side note, but I actually had a listener ask me if I could do a episode on somebody that's built a community through TikTok. So that's been in the back of my mind. So we're going to like side note into this episode where we're talking about public speaking, your experience with TikTok and building a community on that. So how's that looked? How long has it taken for you to have that sort of growth?
Yeah, so I started at the end of 2019, and then it was probably about end of February where I did this one video, which was like, don't do these three things if you want to sound competent, confident, and credible. And I talked about the rising inflection at the end of every sentence. I talked a little bit about vocal fry, which is like that crackle that comes up when the airflow's not there. And I think filler words as well. And it was quite a snarky video. I don't think I'd do the same one again now. Like a negative kind of video. However, it blew up and I rang my boyfriend. I was like, oh my God, something's happened. And he's like, oh no, he thought someone had gone to hospital or something. I was like, no, the video, people are watching the TikTok. And I went from 45 followers to 10,000 in 7 days.
Wow.
So that was the big one. And I was able to stay really consistent. During COVID, during lockdown, I was doing about 3 a day. And yeah, over that time, a couple went viral. And then it's built up to 350,000 now. And
That
it is
is
still the number one
insane.
lead magnet into my business. And this
Okay,
is
so that was
also
my
about
next
getting out there,
question.
sharing
Yeah.
your voice. Yeah, go
What
ahead.
is then, once you've got that following, how did you then turn that into paying clients? What was that switch for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have just my link that's linked in there.
Mm,
And I found that it was the real top of funnel where people just saw who I was and what I did. And then they've gone to my Instagram
mhm.
and maybe signed up to my mailing list. You know, I asked people when they come into my courses, how did you find me? And even though it looks to me like they've come through particular email or something like that, they often say, oh, I first saw you on TikTok.
Yeah.
Even some of the big corporate work I get is from somebody who's seen me on TikTok and said, well, I want to get her into the company. So it's not that quantifiable, but anecdotally, so much. And to be honest, when I just do the fun, not really business related stuff, like I do a bit of newsreader comedy, that's what gets more people into the business than when I'm actually sharing offers.
Yeah, I love that, especially when they're that cold lead where they haven't seen you before. It's just getting them to build up a bit of trust and credibility with you before you start sharing offers and moving them through that customer journey and that sales process. So I guess you've really developed that funnel now, and you've got them from the first point where they're seeing you on TikTok and they have no idea who you are, and then you're starting to warm them up as they go till they get to the point where they're comfortable to be a paying client. So a bit of strategy that's gone behind that, and that is incredible. So then from there, the other question this person asked me, Kelly, so shout out to Kelly if you're out there, is how do you find it with engaging in your community? Do you use it to engage with the community, or are you more just putting content out?
We do get a lot more comments on TikTok than any other platform. So it's and I reply to every single comment. I also like to go live on there. When you're live, it's a real interaction. Live on Instagram, I feel, is more, well, for me anyway, is like you're just recording a video. There's often not many people that are there. TikTok, you stay on there for a while and people join and ask questions. What I'd say is this is all free. Like getting onto any of these platforms and speaking and using your voice, if you can do it organically, then you can do it when it goes to paid. And it's just such a great way to separate yourself because nobody has your story. No one has your life. And so the more that you share that, the more people see that in you and they have that relatability element. So yeah,
Yeah.
actually, it's a good reminder for TikTok. I should feel like I even want to go back to not even treating it like a business page. And that's what I almost did in the beginning. I didn't even treat it like a business page. I just got on there and made crazy stuff.
And you enjoy it. And I think that's the thing is that if you enjoy, I love podcasting because I'm a big podcast listener and I enjoy listening and recording it. Whereas I tried TikTok, maybe I need to give it a crack again, but I tried it and I didn't love it. And not to say that it's bad, but you know, if you're on there and you're enjoying doing it, that's the most important thing. So whatever medium somebody chooses to use for their business, it's about having fun with it. So 350,000 and you're replying to each of those comments. How long, quantify that in time? Like how much time are you spending on TikTok to do that?
Oh, look, a lot of my videos lately aren't going very viral, so there's hardly any comments at all. Every now and then one will blow up and, you know, it'll take me a bit of time to reply. At the height of it, when it was really growing fast, I was spending probably 2 hours a day just replying to comments.
Wow.
It's not like that at the moment. And I like what you said, Sarah. It's really about following those breadcrumbs of excitement and doing what you want to do, not getting on TikTok because someone said, or not getting on LinkedIn because someone said, but really saying, okay, how do I want to share my voice? And then go all in on what you find most enjoyable, whether that be podcasting, speaking at events, TikTok. I mean, I feel like there's got to be some sort of social media in there somewhere.
Yeah, you've got to use something. And like you said, it's free. So even though we hear all that stuff that we don't own the audience and all that sort of stuff, if somebody's going to put our content in front of others for free, we might as well take advantage of that. We'd be crazy not to, hey? So it's worth it.
That's how you get people into your email list.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So it's about having that customer journey that we've put them on and we know that that works and we lead them from one thing to the next and have a really strategic way of doing that, which I guess at the start started off as fun, but I'm sure as time's gone on, you've developed that and turned it into a fun business process now. So that is a little bit off the topic of what we're talking about, but I think that's really important. And I suppose it's probably not off the topic because I think a lot of the time when we're thinking about public speaking, we're thinking about getting out there and presenting a seminar, keynote speech, all that sort of stuff. But really, presenting on social media is presenting. So, isn't it? Like, I guess it doesn't need to, people listening to this don't need to be planning to go out and give seminars or presentations. They could be just wanting to feel more confident in any social media stuff that they're doing, don't they? Like, we think people used it.
Yeah, you're public speaking every time you're not speaking to yourself. So even if you're having coffee with one person or a sales call with one client or you're speaking to 1,000 people, it is all public speaking. And the majority of people I work with aren't out there giving TED Talks and speaking at conferences. Of course, some are, but most are people who want to show up more on social media video, be able to speak up in Zoom meetings. I even have people who just feel like they've lost their voice in their relationships and they're trying to find the courage to be able to say hello to people in the coffee shop.
Wow, how powerful is that to be able to offer somebody? Like, it's it's mind-blowing. So very, very special. And I guess seeing the journey that you take people on from they might start off just doing a couple of lives on Instagram or whatever it might be, or just recording a few videos to put out there to the world. And then from there, they might feel comfortable to host a webinar or a masterclass or whatever it might be. And then you might see them on stage presenting in a seminar, and it sort of builds from there. So it doesn't have to be this early, you're doing it and you're just going to go present in front of 100 people. It can be that gradual process where you get better. So for somebody that is looking to present and get into, or present, start using their voice more in whatever way that they're choosing, what would be some tips that you'd give them to start out?
Open up the video, record, and start talking. The worst kind of content is no content. It's really building it up. Like, I look at my TikToks and people see the big audience and everything. I have honestly done about 1,000 TikToks. So it definitely builds up over time. I had a client the other day, and in our session, she was like, "Oh, Sal, I don't know how to invite someone to go live with me on Instagram. I don't like going live by myself." So I was like, "All right, let's do it now." And in the middle of the session, I was like, we did a live on Instagram. And then afterwards, she's like, "Oh, wow, it's actually really so easy." And then that afternoon, she had somebody she'd invited and they were doing lives. And before the session, she felt like she couldn't do it at all.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, it's really about just doing it.
Mm. And another thing that you talk about, because I think a lot of the reason that people feel nervous is because they're like, "Oh, what am I going to say? I'm going to stuff it up." You talk about the story a lot. So what do you mean when you're talking about the story, and how does that come into play with our public speaking?
There's a couple of different stories. One is the speaking story, which is the story we have in our mind about what we are as a speaker. "Oh, I'm somebody who bumbles my words. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to sound silly. Nobody's going to tune in. People are going to tune in and not like it." Like, all of that soundtrack running in your mind is really the most damaging thing. So if that's what you've got in your mind, rewrite it. "I am someone who has something valuable to say. I have a product or service people need. I'm giving it a go." Like, you really have that positive mindset. And then the story that you're actually sharing, it's handy to have structures. So one I'll share with you now is CAR, CAR. So C is for the context or the circumstances, A is for the action, and then R is for the result. So if you're going live, you could easily use a structure like that. Or you could have, here's top 3 tips, and just go through those 3.
So
So the main thing is, yeah.
we're doing the context, the car example. So context. Let's I'm not putting you too much on the spot. What would be an example of how that would actually play out when you're using that?
Yeah, so let's do an example with you, Sarah. So what's a little story that you'd like to share on a live?
Oh, I would say one that I was talking to a mum about before, my new VA, is about mum time and the juggle that we have being a mum. And we were talking about
Right. So what's the set up the context?
yeah, context. Okay, so I guess, pre-kids, when we had 24 hours in a day, I would be like, okay, I've got 24 hours in a day to use and use that. Now, post-kids, I don't have 24 hours in a day. I might have a couple of hours that I can actually use towards my business or different things. And we're just speaking about how that works.
So what's the action you would have taken?
So the action, I guess, now I have to be a lot more purposeful with everything that I'm doing with my business and the decisions that I make, because I don't have that free time to fluff around.
And as a result?
And as a result, my business has a lot more strategy behind it. I actually enjoy what I'm doing more because I know why I'm doing it and everything has a specific outcome that I'm getting from it. So I'm getting to spend more time with my family and with kids, forced, or, you've got no choice when you've got babies, but I'm also getting to do the stuff I love with more purpose. So yeah, and there we go. That was a good example. That was fun. Yeah, you should be in my content or sessions all the time, just nutting that stuff out.
Yeah, and there's so many different structures that you can use. It's also understanding whether the structure helps you or hinders you. Often having notes written out will be more of a distraction. You'll think, oh no, I have to say exactly what's on here, so it's better off just to have no notes.
True.
Often for short videos, I will write a script, and that's because you've got to get the point, to the point as quickly as you can. So you've got that economy of words. So I'll often write that out before I film. And the great thing about TikTok and Reels at the moment is that fast moving cut between takes is really refreshing, like even cutting out breaths. So you only have to do like one line, then edit it all together.
Yeah, so it makes it an easier thing to digest, I guess, than trying to put together a 20-minute video or whatever it might be. So it's probably a really good way for people to learn using TikToks and Reels and all this sort of stuff because it forces you to be concise. Is that what you think?
Definitely. And you can even record a video and not post it if you don't want to, like just record it. Because I like how you said before, it's not about going from not doing anything to speaking in front of 1,000 people. It's working out where your edges are. So you've got your comfort zone, and then where is it a stretch for you? Is it a stretch for you to be on a podcast? Is it a stretch for you to do a live video? Just nudge the edges, and then you do it more and more. The comfort zone becomes bigger. And then next thing you'll be knocking on my door saying, Sal, ready for my TED Talk, ready for my big keynote.
I hope so. And do you know, before this, I was listening to one of your podcast episodes and you said something in there that I thought was really interesting as well. It was talking about, and this, you might be paraphrasing you, so if this isn't correct, let me know. It was talking about the feelings you have before you present. I think it was fear and excitement, or nervousness and excitement come out the same way. Is that what that is?
Yeah, so nerves and excitement feel the same way in the body. It's just the mind that's assigning the meaning.
Yeah. So that's really
The
powerful.
physical sensations, physical sensations are so powerful. Rather than going, most people have a negative association with the word nervous. So people might say to me, and they do, Sally, do you get nervous before speaking? And I say, hell yes, and I love it. Bring on the nerves. Like, honestly, I enjoy being nervous. It's great before I speak. So if you've got that negative association, then I would say change it. Don't even use the word nerves. Just say, okay, my heart is beating faster. Heart is beating faster. Okay, that's my heart cheering for me. I saw that on Instagram, thought it was cute. And taking some deep breaths and stretching into the chest. Then going, all right, I've got some feeling in my tummy, and then addressing the physical sensation rather than looping back to this negative story of why it's bad. that will send you straight into the fight or flight response of your nervous system. And it'll go downhill from there.
Absolutely. And I think this is funny. So I was thinking back on my speaking journey over the years in different public speaking. And I used to when I first started public speaking, because I've done a fair bit of it in my different roles over time, I used to get that nervous, just sick feeling where I was just couldn't breathe, get the rash, all that sort of stuff. And then somewhere over time, it switched and that nervous feeling went to exactly what you're talking about, that exciting feeling. And now I love public speaking. Like if someone says, does someone want to, present at something? I'm like, yes, I will. Like now that feeling is just pure excitement. Like I just love the adrenaline hit. I love, I guess the ego side of it. Like I feel really good and it's awesome. And I think now you're saying that, and now once I listened to that episode, I was like, oh, you're right. That is the same feeling I was feeling. But now I've just switched it in my mind to a positive thing instead of a negative thing. So amazing how powerful that is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. Our real voice is a megaphone for our inner voice.
Yeah. It's mad. And so just a couple of examples maybe of where you've seen people use. So you're a perfect example. Like, look at your TikTok conversions now, 350,000 is an insane amount. So that's obviously where public speaking's got you. How have you seen other people or people that you've worked with use public speaking in their business to give them results? And what sort of results have they got?
The main thing is saying yes to events. So I'll have business owners who will say, oh, I was asked to speak on this panel, but I said no because there's someone else who knows more than me, and I haven't been in business that long, and so I've just said no. So I'm like, okay, there goes that that opportunity. So the same person. I said, all right, the next one, you got to say yes. Say yes now and panic later. Well, don't panic, but just say yes. And she went there and answered the questions as best she could. Of course, came off and was like, "Oh no, I don't think it went that well," which is another mindset thing. If we enjoy beating ourselves up after something, even though it probably went fine. And afterwards, she had like 5 new people in the audience who had messaged her on LinkedIn saying, "I want to find out more about what you do."
That's an incredible change from where she first was, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
massive.
and that's just a small difference. I've also had people go from not wanting even to speak up at work to saying yes to a conference and then being voted as the best conference presentation of the event and already being booked to go back the following year.
Wow, that's huge. So, so good. And it's powerful. Is it like I shared with you, I dug it up, so now I'm thinking about it, is my first keynote, a presentation I did. And it was only to 20 people, but I think it was almost 95% of those people convert to customers after that event, which was just insane. Given I did put a lot of time and energy into preparing that event, and I'm pretty sure everybody in my household knew my presentation as well as I did from listening to me practice it. It just shows the power of what you can get out of an event. Like instead of having to talk one-on-one with somebody, or even if it is one-on-one, if you feel more confident in your words, you're using one-on-one. But if you're able to then give that same message to 30, 50, 100, however many people, that makes your life a little bit easier as a business owner. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. And with business owners, a lot of it is that small step. So I've had people who've said, I've just haven't been confident showing my face on Instagram stories. Now I do it without even thinking about it.
That's awesome. So it's really just start off small, build from there.
Yeah, start small. And every time you speak is a chance to practice, whether you're speaking to your friends or to your partner or in business mastermind groups or podcasts, every single time is a chance to practice. And you'll hear business owners, founders who have fantastic stories, and you'll hear them on stage and you'll think, oh, wow, that's like just came out like it was nothing. Chances are it's not the first time they've said that. They probably practiced that story, be it in the shower, with their friends or at other events beforehand. So it's like remembering that things don't happen straight away. There's always a process behind it.
Yeah. And what do I can't remember if you mentioned it in this podcast episode or in one of the ones I was listening to. You call it a storybook or something where you tell people to write down their stories. Is that
Yeah, absolutely. Create a story journal.
story journal?
Write down what the story is. Yeah. And because what can happen is we feel like, oh, what's our story? And we go into the chronology of, oh, I did this and then I did that. And then I went on to do this and then I became this in a line. Whereas the story journal takes out key moments, like what was your biggest challenge or the moment you knew you wanted to start your business, and write down just what happened. You'll be able to remember. It's your story. So, I recently climbed a snow-covered mountain in my underwear as part of a Wim Hof experience. And if I have a picture of a mountain, I know it's that story. And then outside that, you can put the reasons you might like to tell it.
Hmm.
So the story of climbing the mountain in my underwear, it's about getting out of your comfort zone. It's about believing that you can do things that you previously thought you couldn't. It's about teamwork. It's about breathing. It's about lots of different things. So you brainstorm all that on a page. And then whenever you've got the opportunity to link into one of those things, then you can share that story.
Yeah, so really, it doesn't have to be a business story or just talking about what you do. It's pulling out stories from your everyday life and pulling them in to use in your business to make your copy or what you're saying a little bit more exciting and engaging, and people can relate to it more.
Yeah, absolutely. Often the best business stories are ones that aren't directly to do with business.
Yeah, I love that. There has been so many nuggets of gold in this. I think we've left everybody with a whole lot of good stuff that they can take out of this and steps that they can take away from it to start doing. Is there anything else you think we haven't covered that would be paramount to the success of people getting out there and starting to use their voice more in their business?
Or just trusting yourself. The word confidence comes from the Latin word confidere, which means to trust. So to have trust in yourself and know that the beauty of using your voice, which is as unique as your fingerprint, is once you're getting out there and talking about your business, your product, or your service with your voice, the more you lean into that, the less competition you're going to have and the more you're going to attract your ideal customer and client. Because nobody can be you, nobody can have your voice. Plenty of people can curate photos and write nice posts. Nobody can stand in front of a camera or stand in front of people and share your stories in your voice, in your way. And so there's so much confidence to be gained from doing it, and also so much success to be had in business by doing it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. As a new business, it's hard because sometimes you might feel doubtful when you're looking around going, oh, well, they've got more experience than me. They've been in it for longer. They've got a bigger business than me, or whatever it might be that you're telling yourself. But really, no one does it like you do. Nobody is the person that you are. Nobody has the stories that you have. What you have is unique, and that's really powerful in itself. So it's just owning that and using that. It's, yeah, very, very powerful. So you have a course that's launched now that's starting very, very soon. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about that? So if they are wanting to work with you further or get into this stuff further, where they can find out a bit more about how to do that?
Absolutely. I would love to have you in Speak Up for Your Business. And the title pretty much says it all. Goes through the how, the tech, all the mindset blocks you might have, and will be there alongside you showing up and speaking up for your business. So whether you want to do Instagram stories or podcasts or a TED talk or whatever it is, we'll work with you to ensure that you do it. I know in my business, the biggest thing has been taking imperfect action. Have my TikToks been perfect? No. Have my podcasts been perfect? No, but I've done them. And you mentioned before, you can look online and see people doing more than you, but all they're really doing often is showing up more. So if you'd like to show up more and speak up more, then we'll put the link in the show notes, I think.
We absolutely will put the link in the show notes. And if you do jump over, make sure you let Sal know that I sent you or you heard her on the podcast here. And as well, we've mentioned it before, but we haven't actually given the details. You've got a podcast as well. What's your podcast? Where can people find yours?
Yes, my podcast is called That Voice Podcast.
That's a good title. I like it. So, and that's all tips on using your voice and everything that we've spoken about today. So if people want to jump over and have a listen to that, they should do so as well. But I will be sure to put the details in the show notes for everybody. But I think everyone's going to get a whole lot out of this. And it's not, I guess, my main key takeaway that I've taken out, which I probably didn't realize at the start of this episode, is it's not just for people that want to get out and present. It's for everybody and how you're using it in your everyday life. So I think everyone can take at least something out of this and help empower them to use their voice better.
Absolutely. Amen to that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Sally. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Thanks, Sarah.